on Modbus server. Now, this particular video is applicable not just to Modbus TCP server, but also to Modbus RTU slave. And this video is about the data logging capability. We're using Modbus TCP server here as an example. This is the window that you normally have, and we are having a look here, and we've got the data log button. We can use the data log button, or we can also use the data log toggle here, or the shortcut command D. So when we click that, we get the log window to come up. That log window can be closed and opened, and closed and opened, whichever way you like. So let's just have a look. The data log window allows us to see what's actually transmitted on the Modbus TCP server connection, and whether that's the RTU serial connection or whether that's the Modbus TCP server Ethernet connection, TCP connection. So let's just connect the slave. So here we go. We got a client. We got a client that is connected to the server now. We got the data log window open, and that's all you need. There's no other need to enable anything. And once we get a request, let's just issue a request from our client. You can see this is what was being sent through from the client, and this is what the server has replied. So RX as in receive, this is what's been received by Modbus TCP server, and that's what's been transmitted from Modbus TCP server to the client. Now we have got, the first thing you'll notice is a timestamp here, so we can see exactly what happened, and that's obviously milliseconds. So we can see here it took about 3 milliseconds for the reply to be sent. We can turn that timestamp on and off. So if you're not interested in the timestamp, you can remove that. And we've also got the ability to get some more information on it by just clicking on that line, and now you can see here what that line actually means, the interpretation of it. So in this instance here, we have got a request that was received, so that's the RX line. The server has received a request. There's a transaction ID on there, there's a protocol ID, there's a length, there's a unit ID, there's the function, read holding registers, and starting address 1 and quantity 2 registers. So that's what has been requested from the client. And here we can see the reply that we have sent. So the reply, again, the same information. It's got a byte count in here, so 4 bytes is what was in the reply. So that's those last 4 bytes here, which is actually the register contents. So in order to maybe see that a little bit better, we might just go and change our change that to hexadecimal, and enter some hexadecimal values. So we're going to go to this one here, we're going to enter A1 and A2, and in the second address we're going to enter B1 and B2. Now we'll issue the same request again, and here we go. There's now the values that are getting transferred. So when we highlight, the request is obviously exactly the same as before here, but the response now, the reply, the response that was sent back contains A1, A2 and B1, B2, so we can clearly identify the 2 register values that have been sent back. So that's really good to try and understand what's happening with the Modbus communication, and also the that information that you find here, what the meaning is of all these. You will find that in the Modbus specification, which is available on the internet. You can find the Modbus specs, and that'll give a detailed explanation of each of those values. But we do have a number of buttons up here, and there is one which allows us to clear the window, clear everything that's in here. We already talked about that. That's the timestamp on off. And then we have got a stop button that stops recording, and a start button to start recording. But we've also got a pause button. Now the pause button is particularly relevant if, and let me just change my slave here to something different. Where's my slave gone? My slave is here. I don't want the slave in full screen mode, and we need to get the slave back under control. Okay, so we're using our client here. Shouldn't have called it a slave, and I'm just going to change that around to use a scan time of 2 seconds, and we'll get that off the screen again so we're not confused by it. Now when we do a start, so we can close the response here, and we're now sending regular requests. So when we hit the start button, there's a request coming every 2 seconds, so you can see every 2 seconds the access lights up. Now when we hit the pause button here, what happens is the screen is basically frozen, but it is still recording in the background. So we're not missing out any information, but it allows us to investigate anything that's happening here. And when we are ready to resume, it'll actually show us all the transactions that we've missed out, and so we unpause, and there you go. There's a lot of transactions that have just come in from that. So that's the functionality of the pause. We can go stop, pause, or freeze. Nothing comes in, but it's recording in the background, and we can unpause again, and there's all the transactions that we didn't see while it was frozen. On the other hand, when we've got the stop button, the stop actually stops us recording altogether. So the data log is now not recording at all. And when I restart it, all the transactions that have occurred, and you can see there's quite a few that are occurring, one every 2 seconds, all the transactions, they're not recorded, so they've been lost. And when we start it again, it just starts with the next transaction. So just to summarize, let me stop that again. Just to summarize here, we have got a timestamp on off. We have got a clear screen. Trash throws everything here in the trash. We have also got a stop and a start for the recording, and then we have got a pause or a freeze button, which freezes the display. And once we click on a line, we can see the interpretation of that line here. We can see an explanation of what it is. And that should enable you to do some diagnostics, and that should enable you to see at a byte level what is going on your Modbus, and what the client is sending, or the RTU master is sending, and what the TCP server or the RTU slave is sending back in reply. Have fun, and thank you for watching.